Welcome to Our.Love podcast, where we share insights from top scientists and relationship experts on all things about love that are out of the box, refreshing, and new. Now sit back, grab a cold drink or hot one if you prefer, and enjoy today's episode.
Okay, thanks for chatting with me, Dave Sbarra.
You're welcome.
For people who are just having a look at this video, Dave Sbarra is one of the world's experts in how couples regulate each other physiologically, emotionally, behaviorally, and the consequences of that regulation for health, as well as for how people recover when relationships break up. So there's just so much we could talk with Dave about, but I wanted to start, Dave, by noting this recent review you did, looking at the major theories of how our relationships affect our health and well-being, and just wondering if you could help us out a little bit with the state of the field. How does it look to you right now? We know that relationships are linked to health, but do we know why?
Well, I think so first of all, it's great to be with you and to talk about these things. I think they're very important. And I think that general public's increasingly recognizing that they're important. As we're coming through the pandemic and still living through it, we're thinking about our relationships quite a lot. We're thinking about people we miss, and we're also thinking about being quarantined with the people we don't miss, and what it's like to live together and be together. So there's a very, very large literature, and you and I have written big, long papers together about the work connecting the quality, quantity, and status of our relationships to physical health outcomes, both in the short term, immediate, like, say, your cardiovascular reactivity to stress in the lab. If your partner is there with you and we put your foot in a freezing cold bucket of ice water, you have less of a blood pressure response. And also relative to being alone, also, if you are merely thinking about your partner, you have less cardiovascular reactivity relative to being alone. So we can call on these mental images of our partner to sort of buffer stress in day-to-day life, but also distally, right? People who live in high-quality relationships over the course of their adult lifespan, and a lot of this has roots, long roots into childhood, but they live longer. And we know this in all kinds of different ways. The more friends you have, the higher quality those relationships are, the longer your marriage and partnerships last. Whether or not you're bereaved, you live longer. So the question you started out with is, what is in the black box in the middle?
Yeah.
How do we actually explain that? And, psychologists, as you know, we refer to that as mechanisms. What are the mechanisms that convey this action that help us understand how this action unfolds? And typically we think of, probably three different components of mechanisms. We think about the one, let's just start with the one in the middle. Emotions and cognition, our thoughts and our feelings. How do relationships shape our thoughts and our feelings? And here we look at a lot about our experience of stress on a day-to-day basis. How do relationships sort of attenuate stress? How do they sort of take away the bad and sort of increase the good? What's it like to, what actually happens to people physiologically when you're touched? And when you have sex, or when you hug your partner after a long, stressful day at work, how does that change how we perceive the slings and arrows of life? And this is very relevant to your own research program of how we perceive threats in the wild, right? When we're with other people. So, but I also, very, very, very much believe in the other pathways, and in particular, one about health behaviors. So how do relationships shape and organize what we do in terms of whether or not we smoke, what we eat, how much we're drinking, how much physical activity do we get? And those are critical for our well-being, and relationships play a large part in this. There's also social components, right? Who are you and your partner friends with? What are the social resources that are at your disposal? What is the financial situation that is backing you as you live your life? And so when we think of mechanisms, we think of these different kinds of routes. The interesting part about it is for each of those different dimensions that I talked about, you can drill deeper and deeper and deeper. There's a mechanism to the mechanism, and you can go down into that. So when we start getting into specific relationship properties that really matter for day-to-day intimacy, day-to-day well-being, and what do those look like and how do they unfold are big, important questions.
So what kind of conclusions did you wind up drawing in this review paper that came out recently? I think the title was something to the effect of, and maybe the title gives it away, great theories need of better data.
Yeah, I mean, we have a few papers where we're looking at it. We're looking at the idea that we have an epidemiological finding. We have a big, finding that's very clear: high quality relationships, good health. Which are the mechanisms that explain that? And what we're saying is that we're really, the sort of paper is saying we're really at the beginning of trying to understand this, because we can theorize about it, but we haven't done well in measuring how these kinds of things are unfolding over time. So for example, one target mechanism that I'm really keen about and that we're developing projects on in our laboratory is this idea of perceived partner responsiveness. And you and I have talked about this a lot, but it's the idea that maybe one of the final pathways for relationship quality is the sense in my head that my partner, my felt experience that my partner understands me, cares for me, and values me.
Yeah.
Understanding, caring, and feeling valued. And how do we get there? So the paper that we wrote is largely about how do we manipulate variables to get to these endpoints? What do we do to target these outcomes? And how do we help people create a sense of perceived partner responsiveness in their relationships? Because it's great to document that, like, day-to-day variations in perceived partner responsiveness are associated with more intimacy, they're associated with more sex, they're even associated with better sleep quality, how long you live, and less pain. So great, okay, that good. But maybe it's just the case that good relationships are associated with good outcomes. Can you target this? Can you change this?
Yeah, when you say target, do you mean isolate variables?
No, I mean change. I mean, you have to isolate it to change it. But you want to know what we want to know in the end is if we take a couple that, let's say, is struggling a little bit, and we teach them some skills or create an environment for them to increase their PPR, does the relationship improve accordingly? Does their day-to-day stress change? Target it, we mean engage it, alter it, and see what happens. And we're doing that at a very, very small level right now, because we're trying to, you know this very well, part of the long history in all clinical psychology and intervention science is that we built these, everything and the kitchen sink interventions, and they're from the top down. What do we think should work? What does it do? And they're big, huge packages. They're bloated.
Big, huge theories.
Yeah. And the interventions themselves don't work all that well. And I have a really great example of this that I love so much. But now we're trying to talk about like ways to start from the bottom. One couple, texting one couple, talking to them about this. What does it look like? How is it unfolding? What are they doing? And that I think is going to be a winning approach.
Yeah. So you're really going to be taking some of these theories and trying to isolate the variables that are said to be in play, and see if by moving those variables around, you can actually create the kinds of changes we want to see and that people want to see for their own relationships.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think you know very well that I think some of the best work in this area, not yet replicated, but is Eli Finkels Marriage Hat. And, this intervention is 21 minutes a year where he asks couples to write about negative interactions with their partner, but then try to reframe it and take the perspective of a distant other or an outside evaluator, so that you're not so caught in these attributional biases or these misappraisals or these hostile attributions about your partner. And that reappraisal really seems to forestall this decline in relationship quality that happens pretty inevitably for most couples.
Yeah, and Eli's intervention, it has these neat properties that it's, it can be used as an intervention when there's problems arising already, but it can also be viewed as a kind of a prophylaxis, a kind of a way to keep problems from arising in the first place.
Well, actually, the first study and the really only big study on this was a prevention trial.
Yeah, right.
It was a preventative intervention.
Yeah.
And it's very, I find this to be very interesting. There's this, I think this is actually one of my favorite papers is, we don't need to talk about the authors, but it was a newlywed prevention intervention where they randomly assigned, so a true experiment, couples to 4 conditions, 2 long, detailed prevention programs, one on skills training, the other on emotional empathy. The other condition was a relationship awareness condition, where couples were watched a 1-hour video, discuss the importance of maintaining their relationship, and then were given a list of movies to watch, 1 per week, from the list, and a series of questions to discuss, and then no treatment, no intervention. The 3 active interventions all did the same over time. What does this mean? So in fact, it's a failure of the heavy intervention conditions to really work well. If you create the space for couples to actually talk, to create some shared meaning about their experience, to watch Netflix, talk about what they like, and think about what it means for their relationship, there's a lot of benefit in that. And that becomes very important. I know it's relative to, related to what you want to talk about.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the field being sort of at the beginning stages, it seems to me that you were really at the beginning of the beginning in your 2008 paper with Cindy Hazan on co-regulation. And I was wondering if you could describe what you mean by co-regulation a little bit, and how that might fit into all of this.
Sure. So I mean, we were coming at this. There was a lot of work that had unfolded as the foundation for how we started thinking about this. But it's also, I think, something you said in the beginning by way of the introduction is important to emphasize here. I started my work in the area of attachment theory and spent a lot of time trying to understand these orientations we have in our mind about how other people respond to us. Are other people good? Are they trustworthy? Or am I lovable in relationships? And I spent a lot of time also studying loss, in particular divorce. And when we wrote this paper we were speaking about in 2008, we were trying to understand loss responses. That was our beginning. That was our opening gambit. We wanted to understand what's happening to people across their whole body, mind and body, across their whole self, mind and body, when they experience a relationship breakup. And to do that, we had to get into the world of what does it mean to actually be attached to another person? Mm-hmm. So I came at it through the back door, and I always said, well, hang on a second. We know a lot about these states of mind that we hold about other people, but we really need to start developing a more complete theory about what is the glue between people? How do you go from being, friends, acquaintances, people to being lovers and partners and
bound together?
We call this pair bonded. So if we call it pair bonded, what does the actual bond mean? And to do this, we turn to a variety of other fields, ethology and evolutionary biology, animal studies, and we started to understand this idea of co-regulation, is that a property of pair bonding is the idea that physiological systems in bonded relationships are interdependent. And we took this idea of interdependence to go across the mind and the body, that as attachment relationships emerge, there's a sum. It's an emergent property that the sum is greater than the two parts, and that there's an interdependence in physiology, and that when you lose one person or through a breakup or death of a partner, there's this free running of the biological systems and even our psychology that we feel fundamentally dysregulated because the person who is doing the regulation is gone. So I mean, the easiest way to think about this for people is if they are regular coffee drinkers or drink soda or something like that. The withdrawal symptoms you experience is a form of dysregulation. The conditioned biology in relation to something like caffeine intake, there is a conditioned biology in relation to our partners. And so we started writing about this, and we started writing about and studying it empirically. And so that was a sort of basic frame of the theory that we were pushing forward.
But it was a framework and a way of thinking about bonding and how people sort of become, in a way, physiologically, not in a way, literally physiologically sort of braided together when they spend a lot of time together. That really provided us all with a really nice frame to think about and to lean on as we were trying to do our own work. Certainly that was true for me. But one of the things, so just to summarize, so what part of what you're saying is like, when you drink coffee for a long time, your brain adapts to the presence of coffee in your system, caffeine in your system. And if you don't have that caffeine, then it's sort of like a stool that used to be there, and you try to lean on the stool and whoa, down you go because it's not there. And that's what our partners are like for us. So in a sense, we learn about what our partners are doing in part by what happens when our partners aren't there anymore. That's part of how we've learned what partners are there. And we've talked about this idea of sort of a hidden regulator, that partners, you mentioned this in the paper, that partners are hidden regulators. You don't see it all the time, but it's doing work.
Absolutely. Yes. And we got to a lot of this by studying the animal literature and these rat dams, the rat moms and their babies. And unfortunately with animals, there's a lot of experimentation that you just can't do with humans. So if you anesthetize the mom, for example, temporarily, you see, the baby goes, and develops a temperature while it's running around. And it's sort of like the systems are very interdependent. And I mean, this work better than I do, some of the history of it. But, what is, now 14 years later, almost 14 years later, and probably almost 20 years later since we started thinking about this, I really think part of the problem is that we have this, because of our bodies, like literally because of our skin, our psychology is organized around thinking about the individual as the unit of analysis. And there's so many ways in which society is organized around this, and societies differ tremendously in the extent to which they place value and importance on this. But the mind and the body are deeply extended. And I think if there's any contribution of this work, we were trying to say, how are we extended in the context of our relationship? How are we interdependent in ways we didn't think we were? Because why is it that losing someone is such a profoundly devastating experience, and it's devastating across multiple levels? And I think another way, if we put the physiology on the side for a minute, and we start thinking about the level of psychology, there are so many ways in which this is relevant too. And you've done work in this also very elegant work where you've shown that, like, who do we think of when we think of the self, right? How do we understand who we are as a person? Well, who I am as a person is bounded up very much in terms of who I am with my partner, who
Yeah.
my partner thinks I am, and this is, I think, a very important one: how we spend our time. Like, what is the regulatory structure of how we spend our days together? Because what is lost when relationships break up, or there's a spouse dies, a partner dies? You lose the structure of your life, literally. And what is the structure of your life? It's not like, oh, I love that person so much and we were so comforting. There is that. But it's also like the rhythms of our daily life. We got up, we had coffee, we read the paper together, we went on a walk, or we went off to work, and then we came home. All of those things very disrupted. And that disrupts our fundamental sense of who we are as a person.
Yeah, all of this is reminding me of a colloquialism that we use all the time, which is quality time, spending quality time together.
Right.
Do you think that, first of all, I'm interested in what you think most people mean most of the time when they refer to quality time, and then do you think that bears any connection to what you're talking about?
I think the way, let me go second question first. I think the way it bears connection is the greater quality of the relationship, the more interdependence we experience.
Okay.
And therefore, the sort of greater the magnitude of the potential loss. So what is it? It is the opportunity to, quality time is the opportunity to create, maintain, and extend your connection to your partner I really think through two vehicles. One is attention with an A, and the other is intention. So I attend to you in a way that may be different than what I am providing outside of quality time. And you can have quality time together playing tennis, but we can be together and I am attending to you, right? And we do so with intention. We do so with the intention of trying to connect to each other and expand our sense of self, or to dig deeper into what our struggles are. If you go out to dinner, you have a drink, or you go for a walk, things most everyone would say, well, yeah, that's quality time. But you're doing it with attention to the other person, and you have the intention of building or sort of putting back into your relational banking.
Wow. I mean, I find that really powerful, because I think that when, we toss around the phrases like quality time, I think a little cavalierly, without really knowing what we're recommending to people. You need to spend quality time together. Does that mean doing anything, or does that mean doing anything with the intent to pay attention, or is it even something deeper? I don't really know, but I think that what you're saying gets us a lot closer.
I think it means doing almost anything with attention and intention. So, like, for example, we usually have dinner around 6:30 in our family, and probably I'm done by 6:40, and it's over for me. And where we eat is like there's a little bench seat in our kitchen nook, and I will often like recline in the bench seat and just sort of talk to my wife about her day, and she'll talk to me about her day. But I like really consciously try to put away my phone, just sort of sit there and chill, and with the intention of like trying to understand what she's sort of going through. And it doesn't always need to be like a deep kind of soul-searching communion between two people, but just the opportunity to be together with some attention. Because so much of, well, you've heard me talk about it before, but that's like a whole different soapbox. But I think quality time is increasingly difficult because quality is increasingly difficult, because it's always, our lives are so interrupted.
Right. And so if we're able to focus our attention even a little bit, we don't want to set too high a standard for ourselves, right? We don't want to, this is another more Eli Finkel work. We don't want to create some impossible, standard that, it's never quite good enough. Good enough is good enough, right?
For sure.
But there are simple things we might be able to do. Just put your phone away.
Yeah.
And to at least create a situation where your attention isn't being robbed from you as you chit chat or walk along the path or whatever it is.
Right. And I what is the intention part? I really do think the intention part just connects back to that idea of responsiveness, that I intend to help my partner feel, or one could endeavor to help their partner feel valued, cared for, and understood, right? Like, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense that you got mad. I would get mad too. Like that totally makes sense. Why you did that makes sense. Oh, well, you forgot her name, but like anyone could forget her name. You
Yes.
have yeah, okay, I'm not a terrible, wretched person, right? I did, and I think that's really important.
And so you mentioned how, this attention and intention is part of how we expand ourselves to include each other, and how we create that bond, that physiological bond, that braiding together of each other. I mean, what would you say that quality time does for a couple?
I mean, I think it is a fundamental stress reducing activity, right? Like that if there, it's, I'm always thinking about like where we're dialing in on our lives. We're reducing the sort of stress that we're experiencing from work, from all the demands, from parenting, from family life, but we're also increasing the sort of joys and the positive experience. So creating a space to do both of those things is important, to really unwind together and to just have like a space and time where you can unwind, but also to laugh and to dream and to vision, do stuff in a sort of like a forward-looking fantasy kind of way together, right? Because I think this idea, what do we want on the outcome side, is to really always be preserving and enhancing this sense of shared identity and quality through the we, right? Through the we, like the more we are a we, the better we are, because the more robust this relational entity is. And there's research to support this, depending on how couples sort of describe the quality of their relationship, how many we words they use is predictive of and correlated with their relationship quality. That makes a big difference. So enhancing the we is something that's very important.
And one of the things that's always been so fascinating to me about that research, even going all the way back to Gottman's early work, looking at how people refer to their relationship in terms of a we versus she and I, or he and I.
Right.
One of the things that's so interesting to me is how many ways there are for couples to create that sense of we. One of the points that sometimes gets lost in that early Gottman relationship research is that the couples that are having a harder time look far more similar to each other than the couples who are sort of pulling it off. The couples that are creating that sense of being a we with each other, and having who are able to have this quality time, they're really diverse. They're really different from each other. They have all these different strategies for doing it. And that's part of why we have relationships with this person and not that person. This is, I am who I am and they are who they are. And when we're together, we create something unique.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. And I think, there are so many ways. I think that the most common way distressed couples are similar is this attributional bias, this sort of thinking of the other person poorly. He or she is an asshole, or he or she is is such a, whatever we go on, right? And so stepping out of that and coming to really accept the person for who they are, warts and all, is very important. And then developing that shared meaning and cultivating. So that's what quality time does.
So what does failing to achieve quality time do?
I think one of the things, and there are multiple sources of data on this, and it's a pretty reliable effect, is that if you do nothing to cultivate and maintain your relationship, its quality will decline. So that's a really significant
finding, right?
Powerful. So probably within the first few years of marriage, about a fifth of relationships will end. Within the first few years of new marriages, those are all very high quality when they begin, for the most part, right? So you need to cultivate some quality time, some opportunity for connection that is going to put in your life a buffer against this. And I think this is a very important way of thinking about this. We attend to our relationships just like we attend to the other important things. I do physical activity. I try to eat well. I sleep, and I try to maintain my relationships. Okay, well, that's good. What do you mean by maintaining? Well, try to call my friends, text with my friends, try to, and then when it comes to your partner, right? I think I talk a lot with couples about thinking in terms of a scale. Like, what are you doing every single day, like to maintain your relationship? What is your daily habits of relationship maintenance, and what are you doing per week? Right? You don't need to go out together to go dancing every week. And, people who have young kids and are in certain life circumstances, that's not realistic, right? But you'd be thinking about what you're doing on a weekly basis that really sort of matters for your relationship overall, I think is important. And to go all the way back, that's acting with intention, right? Mm-hmm. So if we just sort of forget about it and put it on the back burner, we're so screwed. And like, how did I end up in this situation where we're fighting all the time? How did we get here? Well, part of it is that there's a very slow, steady slippage where you start to see each other as, as sort of two opposing forces working against each other, unless you're trying to grow and change together. And that's much more complicated than said. So, but I think there is a critical piece to understand, is if you don't attend to it, it's gonna go down.
It's like buying a brand new house.
Right.
That's just made. It's perfect. And you just want to settle into it and not have to do anything to it. But over time, it's going to weather. The roof is going to start leaking, or the floor is going to start creaking, or whatever it is. If you don't attend to that maintenance, it's gonna start going downhill.
For sure. Absolutely.
You mentioned putting the phone away, and it's got me thinking a little bit, just by way of sort of closing. What are the kinds of, as far as you know or would guess, what are the kinds of things that get in the way of a couple achieving quality time with each other?
Well, I mean, there are so many. For each couple, I assume it's quite different, right? So there's the harried nature of life, right? Like, if people who are watching it or working or listening or working, have children, and are running around on the weekends, I feel exhausted come Monday morning, and it's exhausted by like all this time that's supposed to spend recuperating is spent like driving people around, and that's my story. But also, I mean, if we dig a little deeper, one of the things that happens is that people start getting polarized, and lives that are together under one roof and maybe functioning pretty well as sort of like a raise happy children kind of thing can be pretty siloed off, right? So you need opportunities to connect to each other physically. You need an intimate relationship, and then you need to create opportunities to sort of break down those silos and to say to each other, we haven't done this, we haven't connected, we haven't, it's really sort of, someone's got to be